is my top VID for the whole summer. June 2. Jonique and I are feeling desperate for it to be June 8. For now, we are 2 girls waiting, mostly at my grandparents' house. I spend a lot of my days and some of my nights at Madam and Pop's because it's 3 blocks away from my house and because my mom has to go to her job, which is being an artist at a TV station, and because I can't stay with my dad on account of he lives in Ann Arbor, which is where I lived before we got a separation last summer. Staying at Madam and Pop's house is A-okay because it's usually a pretty hilarious place to be. My mom, who has the name of Lily, agrees with that because she lived there for her whole childhood with her sisters and brother who are all grown-ups now and live far away. My Aunt Marguerite lives so far away her house is in Japan. Once I asked Pop, "Are you and Madam rich?" And he said, "Rich in kids." My mom and dad are not because I'm the only one they've got, I said. One extremely excellent thing about my grandparents' house is that there are lots of rooms, plus lots of porches, and Pop thinks it's fine for kids to climb out the bathroom window and walk across the breezeway roof to pick apricots, which is our 3rd big plan once they are ripe. My mom says she gets queasy thinking about it, but Pop says not one body has fallen yet, and Madam says she needs the apricots. Another thing about their house is it's old like you can't believe. The ceilings are made of metal called tin that have patterns on them. In my room, on my tin ceiling, there is a big fan that makes it very breezy and refreshing. My regular room has red walls and a pink dotty bedspread and a mirror that I love like anything that is covered with jewels that are fake but look real, and I made it with my mom and not from a kit either. The only not-so-hot thing about staying at my grandparents' is that Madam does not believe in cable TV, even if it's the kind that is appropriate for kids, and she does believe in health, so she is big on soybean foods, which are not the best tasting, but she is also big on desserts, which is pleasing to me and to Jonique. June 3. Here's what happened at my mom's job. One of the other artists had a baby, which my mom says is good for the lady, and good for us because my mom will make overtime, which means extra work for extra money. "How do you feel about that?" my mom asked me. "Excelento, because I am a fan of money," I said. "How about we use your overtime to buy a DVD player?" "How about we fix up the living room instead?" she said. Which I have to say is a good plan, because it needs it. That idea made us go straight to Frager's hardware store to get paint sample cards, which you're allowed to take home because they are free. We taped them to the living room wall, which right now is a color I call tan, and my mom calls depressing. My color cards are Sunset, which is orange, Caribbean, which looks like toothpaste, and lemon meringue, that is so yellow my mom says it's electric, which I say is a big compliment. I also got raspberry, which is jazzy pink, and conch shell, which is light pink. My mom's colors are 2 greens called sage and celery, periwinkle, which is blue, cream and ivory, which are dull, and banana frappe, which is actually the color of butter. We are going to look at them every day until we know which one is the winner, I said. Then my mom had to go to work, so we walked to Constitution Avenue, and she kissed me and kept walking to Union Station to get the subway, which she says is the greatest thing about city living. I hopped the whole way to Madam and Pop's because I am one person who believes in exercise. For dinner, we had minestrone soup and cheese sandwiches on bread that's called whole grain and takes a lot of chewing, but Madam says is good on the account of it has fiber. June 4. This morning, I came down the back staircase and found Pop in the kitchen with oat flakes and skimmed milk that Madam left us for breakfast. Here's what I thought. P.U. Madam wasn't there because she was taking her exercise with a class of ladies. It is not what I call good exercise because mostly they just stretch every which way until they are practically exhausted and have to go drink lattes. Pop said, "We must have something to celebrate." That's what he always says when he wants to skip healthy food and go to Jimmy T's, which is an extremely excellent restaurant in our neighborhood. "School's out. That is something to celebrate," I said. "Good one," Pop said. Even though he is a grown-up, Pop is not such a big fan of school, and he is totally against worksheets. Before we left, Pop said, "Call Melonhead and tell him to meet us at Jimmy T's. We'll pick up Jonique on the way." Melonhead is Adam Mellon. Jonique and I didn't used to like him, but now we do most of the time, even though he can still get on our last nerves. When I asked him, he said, "Sure, I'll come. I had one breakfast, but I am already hungry again." There are two things Melonhead loves in this world. One is science, and the other one is food. The pleasing thing about him is that he is not one to have a panic if things get what my mother calls out of hand. Also, he is a good sport about being called Melonhead, which he says he doesn't mind, but Madam says is not thoughtful. On the walk to Jimmy T's, Jonique asked Pop, "Can we have lemonade for breakfast?" Pop said, "Sure," which I knew he would. By the time we got there, I was meltingly hot, so the first thing I did was put my hands on my neck like I was in the desert and say in my completely weakest voice, "Help me, Mrs. T. I'm starving for lemonade." At the same exact second, Jonique said, "Is Melonhead here yet?" "Sorry, girls, no lemons, no melon," Mrs. T said. Mrs. T is one person who can make you crack up laughing. Right then, Melonhead walked through the door, and Mrs. T said, "Well, it looks like we have melon after all." "Then I'll have a melonade," Pop said, which had us all laughing our lips off. We sat at the counter because Jonique and I are in love with the spinny stools. And when Mrs. T wanted our order, Pop said, "Did Mr. T, who is the cooking one of the T's, make any liver and onions, because that is what Jonique loves to eat for breakfast." "It is not," Jonique said. Then Pop asked, "Do you have mashed turnips and stewed prunes on the menu?" "Yes, turnips, yes, prunes," Mrs. T said. "They're the special of the day, with pickles on the side." This set Melonhead off, and he started making his hooty laugh, and the two ladies that were eating omelets in the front booth popped their heads up to look scowly at him. Pop is a good kidder, but I think he makes Jonique nervous when he acts like that in front of the public at Jimmy T's, so I ordered quick to keep him from getting carried away with himself. "Waffles with spray-on whipped cream, please," I said. "Excellent choice," Mrs. T said. Jonique said, "May I have French toast with powdered sugar and 2 plastic rectangles full of grape jelly for later?" "Another great pick," Mrs. T said. "I'll have orange juice, bacon, blueberry pancakes, and eggs over easy, pleasey," Melonhead said. Pop got cheese eggs and scrapple, which is one food that makes Madam feel horrified, and decaf coffee, which is the only kind he is allowed to have, or he will stay awake all night long. After we made our orders, Pop patted his stomach and said, "We are living large," which we were. While we waited for our food, Mrs. T let me and Jonique and Melonhead fill up the metal napkin boxes. She would have let Pop help too, but he was filling in the New York Times crosswords puzzle, which is what he has to do every day pretty much first thing. Pop is good at those puzzles because he used to be a newspaper man, and he still is a magazine writer. I expect one day I will be good at crosswords because I have a quick-thinking mind, according to my mom. Plus, starting this summer, I am collecting a huge vocabulary, which is the other thing you need. Watching Pop do crosswords is how I found out that standing akimbo means standing with your hands on your hips so your elbows poke out, and that is a handy thing for me to know because I am one person that stands akimbo a lot of the time. 2 other words that came from the New York Times are exuberant, which Madam says is exactly the kind of girl I am, and crestfallen, which is when a person gets disappointed and their face goes all droopy because of it.